Hello everyone, it's Ryan at Dark Winter Moon in Boston, and first of all today I would like to point out that I got a new stand and light for making YouTube videos, so hopefully going forward my video quality will be a lot better. I'm pretty happy with the way it's turned out. The actual importance of this video today centers around a reading that I gave to myself on Monday. It's with a deck that I've had for a long time. It's called the Psych Deck, and it's not really a traditional tarot. It's more like an oracle card deck. What I like about it though is it incorporates a lot of the archetypal elements that the tarot does. And so it's a very good way to get a different take on maybe a pattern you've been seeing in your tarot cards. For me, I had a really interesting reading, a very to-the-point reading, which launched me into this sort of melding with the work I was already doing with a book called Existential Kink that I've been talking about. It's a book on shadow work. It just brought up this really clear example, this very distinctly and clearly laid out metaphor for what I've been going through in my life. And today I would not only like to show you that reading, but kind of break it down a little bit and share with you how it's impacted me. So I've gone ahead and laid out the reading as it started for me on Monday. One thing I like about this deck is that number one in the deck is the Inquirer, or the Querent card. So it's not really a necessary card, but it's kind of an embellishment, and it obviously represents us, or the querent, the person that's asking the question. So the first card I got, I'll turn it over. I started with the central card because that's the one that seemed right, is the puzzle. And I'm like, okay, that's about a good metaphor for what's going on in my life right now. It's a puzzle. And I feel like that's true in many interludes in our life, many different periods in our life. It's a puzzle. It's something we're trying to put together and figure out. But for the first time, when I looked at this card, I decided to turn it sideways. And I've looked at it this way before, but I started to see the parallels in this card. The doors are opposite each other. The locks are on opposite sides. And if you look closer here, the trees in tile in front of them are also opposites in color. So to me, that really brought out this idea of mirror images, that looking at this card, one at first on the surface would think that it was about a choice to choose one door or the other. I mean, even the statue in the center has a key that they're holding, and only one key on the ring. Suggesting that you have to choose one or the other. But if you look more deeply, most of the rest of the card is a reflection. One side reflects the other. And so this really got me to thinking deeply about my current puzzle, about what I've been going through in my life right now. And I'll go into that in a little more detail in a second. But I decided to move on and choose or turn over both other cards. And when I did, go ahead and turn them both over, I got the Beast and the Warrior. And I was like, wow, so this really is about what I've been going on. The Beast I look at very much like the Devil card in the tarot. It's like temptation. It's that aspect of us that feels out of control. And it's kind of the monster within. It's the shadow. And then on the opposite ends of the puzzle, of the spectrum, we have the Warrior, who stands for righteousness and virtue and control, and a lot of things that we consider to be good and right. So that's kind of the breakdown of the reading, and it really set me to thinking. So a little bit more background to this reading and what led up to it. As a witch, I am no stranger to shadow work. And in witchcraft, we consider the shadow, or those aspects of ourselves that are normally considered evil or wrong or undesirable or shameful, are actually parts of our whole, and that those things shouldn't be denied us and shouldn't be ignored and suppressed, but they should be embraced and accepted as part of us. So I have been doing a particular type of shadow work lately, based on a book called Existential Kink by Dr. Carolyn Elliott. And she herself is a witch and a hermeticist. And she bases her entire philosophy off this quote by Carl Jung that says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. So she kind of takes shadow work a step deeper, using that quote. And of course, I'm boiling this down a great deal for simplicity's sake. But essentially what it gets you to in the existential kink practice is that you have all of these unconscious desires that are suppressed and pushed aside and shamed and ignored, that nevertheless have an effect on you because of the patterns that they institute in your life. So basically, because of this shadow side that we all have, we have suppressed that, and there are all of these unconscious patterns that we have that result not only in internal struggles, but outward manifestations in our life. We say in Witchcraft, as within, so without. And we know that our internal world has a direct influence on our external reality. So, back to the significance that this has for me. So, as part of this process that I've been going through with existential kink, this shadow work practice, I have started to understand even more deeply just how much of an impact my early childhood and my indoctrination and socialization during that time had on me. I was raised as a Christian in the South. So as a result of being raised and socialized in a Christian environment from a very early age, I've come to understand that there's all of this shame and this sinful feeling, or these sinful feeling emotions and desires that I have suppressed and forced into my subconscious self and never really admitted to myself. And it all comes out of this idea that as a Christian, that we have to deny our carnal, evil, sinful natures. And, I've been a witch since 1999, and one would think that I've done all the work to exhume and get rid of all of that socialization and Christianization and all of that dogma that was heaped up on me as a child. But that's not the case, I'm finding out. And so when I look at this reading, this Psych Deck reading with the puzzle, which is me and what I'm going through, and the beast on one side, and the warrior on the other, I very much see this interplay between all of these desires and feelings that have never been comfortable for me to accept about myself and how I've pushed them down. And on the other side, this sort of idealized, perfect, righteous version of myself that my ego thinks that I should be. And so one of the things that existential kink teaches us is to not turn away from those things that are uncomfortable, but to try to embrace them and feel them completely, emotionally, viscerally in ourselves, to finally give them voice, with the idea that they never have been given voice. And so this process that I've been going through has allowed me to explore those things that I have labeled darker impulses because of my Christian upbringing. And finally, for the first time in my life, not only admit that I feel them, but allow myself to feel them in my body and in my soul. And I know that I must not be the only one that has experienced this or can identify with this. I feel like there are so many of us that were raised in a Christian dogma who, even after years of working in the craft, have come to the point where we realize there's still more to do. So through the existential kink practice of uncovering all of this, I've realized that actually I like a lot of it. I like the sinful feelingness of it. I like the lustful thoughts and the evil thoughts. And it's not about necessarily bringing them forth so you can go and act up on them. It's about allowing your subconscious to express them through yourselves in a way that is open and unjudgmental about them, because they've never been given that. They've never been allowed to be expressed. So by doing that, I'm starting to open up these little facets of my being that I never realized that were there, and I'm starting to come towards more wholeness. So there has understandably been a lot of things bubbling up, and over the past few weeks, something very specific has kind of started to feel like it was bubbling in the back of my head and slowly moving forward into my conscious awareness. So to give you a bit of backstory first, I have for the past several years been trying to come into a better balance with my drinking habits. Traditionally, I love to drink, and not only have I enjoyed it socially, but I've considered it as a very deep and powerful part of my spiritual and religious experience. And also have seen the act of fermentation and making alcohol and crafting it into such a beautiful and refined thing is in itself a sacred, magical, and alchemical act. So for all of those reasons, I've seen alcohol as this very sacred, personal, and spiritual thing. But looking back, I see how easy it is to allow that to move beyond spiritual and deliberate into abuse. And so I've been trying to figure out how to incorporate it back into my life and my practice in a balanced way. So one of the most powerful ways that I have found to balance my use of alcohol is to swear oaths to Apollo, my patron deity, bless his wisdom, to not drink for certain amounts of time. Because I know that my commitment to him and to that oath is very solid, and that I will not break it. It has worked beautifully for many iterations that I've done over the past several years. It has allowed me to take breaks, to allow my system to reset, to see what I feel like without alcohol, and to allow me a contrast between drinking and not drinking that really allows me to very finely parse out what I get out of it and what some of the negative effects of it are. So, in that regard, I swore an oath on New Year's Day that I wouldn't drink for a year and a day. But because of my existential kink practice, this idea started bubbling up in my head and in my heart concerning this oath. I had already realized that part of the reason that I was drinking to such excess in the past was because I was punishing myself. And also that a large portion of that punishment came from, or that this need or desire to punish myself came from my Christian upbringing, and the shame that was associated with that, and the way that because of that socialization, I had forced down some of these things in my life that I considered darker impulses or evil or shameful. And so I already pretty much grasped that part of it. The other part of it, though, was that it started to dawn on me that one of the reasons I swore the oath was to punish myself in a different way. I chose the process of an oath knowing I wouldn't violate it because it fed into not the beastly aspects of the drinking, which I was pretty clear on, but the warrior aspects of it, which are the righteousness, the virtue, the asceticism. And so I started to realize that one reason that I'd sworn this oath is because of how it made me feel righteous to do so. It made me feel powerful to be able to deny myself alcohol for whatever period of time I suggested. It made me feel superior. It allowed me to separate myself from others, and it started to become a projection onto them where I was thinking to myself subconsciously, oh wow, look at me, like I don't have to participate in this alcohol. I don't have to do it. Look at all of them. They haven't figured it out yet. So I was holding all of these feelings subconsciously that made me feel righteous and superior. And because it turned out that I was projecting onto others partially, I realized that one of the reasons that I was able to so easily keep this oath or these oaths was because of the feeling of what I thought other people would think of me if I failed at it, and also what I thought they would think of me if I succeeded. And so I decided to sit down and meditate with Apollo and ask him for guidance. I had just had this reading that showed this polarity between the beast and the warrior. I had been having this inkling in the back of my head about maybe my oath wasn't as pure as I thought it was. And all of these other existential kink thoughts and emotions around my upbringing, etc., that I was just talking about. I really felt confused. So I sat down with Apollo and I started to meditate on it. And oftentimes when I meditate with Apollo, as Apollo Chelaspeks, the all-seeing watcher of the heavens, and the God of truth and the God of light, he brings clarity and truth to my thoughts and emotions. And it wasn't quite in words, but as I was meditating with him, it became very clear. It felt like he was saying to me, so your oath isn't just between you and me. You realize that, don't you? He was saying, you have sworn this oath partially because of what you think other people will think of you because of it. If you fail or succeed at it, a lot of it's based on what you think they'll think. And he was very clear. He's like, an oath with me is between you and me. It's not between us and someone else. It's between us. And if you're going to swear an oath to me going forward, I want you to swear an oath that is clearly between just you and me, and not for anyone else, but for you. And he said, therefore, I absolve you of this oath. And so very clearly, he had me take the goblet I keep on his altar, go downstairs, clean it out, put some fresh water in it, bless it with salt, come back up and drink the water. And he said, now you're absolved. Now, think clearly on the kind of oath that you want to swear, and think clearly on making sure it is absolutely between you and I. And then come back to me. So, yeah. It was a very clear directive from him to do better. To really, really understand why I would swear an oath to him and to make sure I was doing it for myself, and doing it in such a way that was only between he and I, not between he and I and some sort of projected expectations that I was placing on other people for me. So I wanted to share all of this because that is the beauty of shadow work. This whole thing is an example of how not only everything comes together, the tarot cards, the subconscious promptings, the meditation with deity and guides, all comes together to work for our benefit if we'll allow it. So shadow work allows us to uncover these patterns and to disempower them so that they no longer have control over us, so that we no longer subconsciously project them out into the world around us. But if we keep working and we keep stepping into discomfort and or confusion or things that seem evil or dark with courage and with the attempt to accept them as part of us, as whole parts of us, then we will be successful. We will release these patterns. So as part of this work this week, I have also written a blog post on all of this. There are more details in that, and it's stated in a different way than I stated here. But I would like to read to you the last paragraph of it because I think it sums up exactly what I've been saying in this video. This is all a lesson in acceptance of the whole self, the light and shadow as a way to disempower patterns and shape us. The self is a very complex and multi-layered thing, but with persistence and courage, compassion and love, we can begin to uncover, embrace, love, and accept the patterns that rule our lives. And that is this work. And it's a beautiful and a very challenging thing, but it can be done. So I wish you all the best in that. I would love comments. Reach out to me, DM me on Instagram at dark.winter.moon or email me at darkwintermoon8@gmail.com. And if you would like notifications about my upcoming videos, please sign up for my email list on my webpage at darkwintermoon.boston, or subscribe and ring the bell here. And as always, blessed be.